Welcome to the space between. In a world that disconnects us from our true selves, how do we find our purpose in this lifetime? How do we find what really lights us up? Human design is a self-discovery system that uses a combination of ancient and modern disciplines to help people understand their life purpose. The system is based on the idea that people can be true to themselves instead of following what society thinks is right. Diamond Drip is a best-selling, award-winning author, coach, and speaker dedicated to helping others ditch self-doubt and embrace their true selves. She's passionate about empowering others to trust their gut and unlock their full potential. It's time to break out of lives that don't align. It's time to find our true potential in what truly lights us up, that allows us to serve and have impact in the world. Join us as we connect through conversation. Welcome to the Space Between. My name is Alyson Rixner, and I am so excited to have you all for another episode of the Space Between podcast. This theme is what I believe the future of how we are going to learn more about ourselves and why we're here on planet Earth. And I welcome my new friend, Diamond Drip, to the Space Between. Welcome!
Hi! I'm so excited to be here with you and our listeners.
I'm so happy that we found each other, first of all. So thank you, universe, for blessing this union that we're going to share with everybody else today. And we found each other through social media. So one of the pluses of technology. And what I love about what we're about to do is the energy between the two of us and how we are both so committed to our purpose and path and helping others find theirs and be in their energy and be in their essence. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to get started. Let's get into this tool.
Let's get into this tool. And for those of you that are maybe listening for the first time, the way we look at the theme, which today is human design. It's a buzzword, even outside of the spiritual community. It's been a super buzzword in the spiritual community for quite some time, but it's really starting to take off. And the way that we look at the themes that we discuss on the Space Between is through the lens of this very transformative, chaotic, crumbling, awakening, all of these really, really big words. And I think it's important to always say when we're recording this, because there is a perspective and a context. It is January 10th, 2025, is it not?
We're in it. We're fully in 2025 now.
Bam, bam. And we have a lot of things going on right now. We have, sadly, the horrible wildfires that have hit California, Southern California yet again. We recently had horrible hurricanes, the climate very much into the energy of 2024-25. We're seeing a lot of these things play out. This is the day when people are talking about the TikTok ban, free speech, what can we say? Are we living in a corporatocracy? Times are wild. Would you agree with that?
Times are wild indeed. There's so much. And I feel like because everything's connected, like diving into these deeper levels of consciousness, seeing how we show up as a part of this chaos can be really, really healing.
Absolutely. So why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of what led you to want to serve in this way. And then we'll get into all things human design.
Okay. So the little bit about me is that I started my entrepreneurship journey as a product-based business owner, moved into service-based, and faced all of the imposter syndrome and the new shiny object syndrome. And should I really be doing this? That comes with that. And so that journey, of course, trauma in the past too, but that journey really is what brought me to human design as a tool that can help. Because when I first entered into service-based coaching, I did business coaching. And so it was one of those things where it was like, And I love the book reference, The Big Leap, when they talk about, you know, your zone of genius versus your zone of competence and your zone of skill. Like business coaching for me, competent at it. Like I built 2 businesses at that point. Like I can teach someone how to do that. Like maybe this is what people are asking me for. Maybe I should do that. But my zone of genius is really in getting people to understand themselves in this deep way so that they can shift their perspective and make real change in their life that increases their influence, not just as a business owner, but if they're in community, if they have a family. These are all positions of influence. And so I'm happy I stand firmly in that now, but in the heat
You're
of
in it,
imposter
girl.
syndrome,
Yeah, it's not easy.
in the heat of imposter syndrome, I was like, I got to make this business coaching thing work. I'm scared that it's not going to work. What if I'm not meant to do this? So I joined a business coaching program. One of the ones that we always see. You want 100K launches. You want the blah, blah, blah,
All
blah,
those
blah.
ads. Click here. Change
Click
your
here.
life.
And so I joined the program because I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And obviously they're going to show me the way. And I learned very quickly that those types of programs don't work for everyone. Because while some people were having 6-figure launches, those of us who weren't, we were looking at them like, what am I doing wrong? Why is this not working
And the
for me?
spiral starts.
Right?
The drain. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And so it was going through that process and it was like, okay, what's my superpower? What makes me different? How can I stand out? Especially because I picked business coaching. I was like, there's billions of business coaches online. It
Right.
seems like how do I stand out? And someone asked me what was my energy type. Painfully 9 months into this journey, I would say, but they finally asked me this question. And from there, I'm a 1-line, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I'm a 1-line. And so that investigator, that researcher, it just immediately kicked in. Once I pulled my chart, I was like, what does it mean to be a generator? What does it mean to be this?
Right.
And everything that I found, it was like I was coming home to myself. It was deeper than any DISC, any Myers-Briggs, any cosmopolitan, personality test, whatever you want to do.
There's
and I was
so
like,
many of those too. Like if anybody's ever had a job in corporate America, like, this is who you are. What?
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing with those, obviously we said we're not going to poop on them at all. But the thing with those is like, when you take them, some stuff fits, some stuff clicks. It's like, oh yeah, that's me. But other stuff is like, I don't really know.
Right. And how about those questions? You're like, wait, what? It's so inherently stressful to even answer some of those surveys, right? And that has its place. It's all good, right?
Yeah. But the thing with human design is everything that I found, it literally was like another piece of validation, another piece of confirmation, another understanding about how can I shift my perspective around this. And so when I started to see how helpful it was in understanding me, I also have a 7-year-old daughter, and I started to see how helpful it was in understanding her and my partner. I was like, these are cheat codes. This is why one size fits all doesn't work for everyone, because literally we're designed differently. We have different activations, different centers, different all of this. So how can you possibly expect one thing to work for all spectrums? And I was like, this was what was missing, honestly, in the business coaching that I was doing. And so even though I didn't really know how I was going to combine business and spirituality, because right?
Look at you figured it out.
Exactly. And what's different is where I chose business coaching because I was scared and I was like, this is obviously what I'm good at. I didn't know anything about human design when I first started. Like, I was doing so many free readings for people because I was like, I just want to know that I know what I'm talking about enough to take this. And I did it in spite of the fear. Like, even though I didn't know how I was going to grow it, because obviously when you start something that's bigger than you, it's like, how do I?
The answers aren't there. There's only ever questions, but you just jumped right in.
Yeah.
It's what you got to do.
I was like, yeah. So now
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So human design, let's sort of unpack what that is. So how would you describe it to somebody that doesn't really understand the spiritual side of things? And then we can get into another definition of like kind of the geeks like us, right? So if you just met someone and they're like, "What do you do?" And you're like, "I do human design." And they're like, "Huh? What would you say?" Let's start there.
Right.
Because we have a vast
Yes.
array of listeners on the podcast. So let's start there.
Yes. So to those people, I would say human design is like an owner's manual for this vessel and this incarnation. We hear it all the time. We're a mind, body, spirit. And so this really helps our spirit navigate the mind body connection in this lifetime. It helps us make confident choices. It helps us know what direction we're going in and how we can stick to our direction, our lane, and not get distracted by what other people are doing, by getting caught up in comparison. So that's kind of how I would.
That's beautiful. But damn, is that needed right now? When you said that last line, I'm like, I have 5 people I'm sending this to because they need to get a reading with you immediately. I'm like, who likes to sit in comparison? Boom, 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 boom. So yeah, you're getting some referrals. So as far as us geeks, right? We like to geek out. Human design is a component of what, and kind of what is the background of it, if that's a helpful way to ask it.
That's 100% helpful. And I love getting to nerd out. So human design is a synthesis of a bunch of different sciences, both ancient and modern. So thinking the I Ching, quantum physics, the Kabbalah tree of life, the chakra model, it's like a little hodgepodge. And these all get mapped on to each other to create this body graph chart, which is like GPS. It's like a turn by turn. Okay, this is what I'm feeling. So I have emotional authority. So my feelings are super potent to everything that I do. And so what it's taught me is like, I need to feel into things. And so it gives you insights into, I would say, to our spiritual friends, there's not anything that human design is going to teach you that you haven't felt on some deep level. What it does is it confirms that what you are feeling is actually you, is actually the way you were designed, is actually the way that you were meant to transform, to evolve in this lifetime. And there's nothing wrong with you, because we receive so many messages from our family, you know, growing up, like, you can't do that or else blah, blah, blah. Then we go and we make friends and they're like, what? You like him? Ew, he's gross. And then society, you need more stuff. You're not enough. Buy this, buy this, buy this instant. And so it takes some of that away.
And I think as we sit here in early 2025, has what you've said never been more applicable? The distractions are like outer worldly. It's gotten just, but I also think what's amazing about what you do and how I think it's going to be so important in 2025 is the fact that is breaking down. People are like on the spectrum of, what is that? Why do is that, huh? And then you have the people that are like, oh, this is all bullshit. And I'm in like a matrix. And you have the spectrum of like where everybody lands. And you and I have had some of this conversation in our previous conversations, but to have a North Star or a guiding light of someone like you who can just say scientifically, quantumly, all of the pieces, right? Spiritually, energetically, this is who you are. And when you have these readings, guys, we're going to link all of her things below. When you have these readings, you get a sense of peace unlike anything you can imagine, because it's the beginning of you being like, oh yeah, this is who I am. If you feel super lost, let somebody help you figure out those pieces. And it's going to be like coming home. Like you said before, it's like coming home to yourself because it's you.
And I love that you brought that into, because in some circles, it's called remembering who you are, because so many of us have forgotten because of who we learned to be. It's like, no, this is how you were designed. Yeah. This is how amazing you are. These are your gifts. use them.
Yeah, you're like shining lights. And so much about the what I call like the collective belief system or the conditioning or whatever you want to call it, it is less in my mind now as I sit here today after everything I've been through about the people that have placed that in your field or the things that people like, whether it's media or, friends or whatever it is. It's more about the structures that exist that is crumbling. So
Yeah.
what are you left with when all of these structures are broken, right? And you're left with yourself.
Hell yeah. Like it's one of those things where even when we're looking at like the creator and what is it they call it? The creator economy.
Yeah,
And we're
right.
looking at AI and how it affects it. Like with so many people being able to do things that creatives have just naturally gotten paid at doing because like it was a skill set.
Right.
Now it's one of those things where if everyone can be a creator, what are you creating? And in
Exactly.
order to know that, you have to know yourself deeply in that way so that you make sure that what you're creating is authentic to you. It's not taking somebody else's stuff and like,
Those
no,
days are over, guys. Listen, for people listening to this, that shit is over. It's so over. And to your point about the courses, we'll circle back to, how you kind of got into this. Be very discerning when you're clicking something or paying for something. Like, is this a copycat? Is this somebody saying, hey, I've already got this figured out and I'm going to be able to tell you exactly what to do to win or to be successful or to be rich or to be whatever? Be careful because we are such unique individuals. We have chosen to come back at specific times for specific things. And that's why the curiosity of having readings with somebody that understands this like you is so different. Like, do not put this into that same bucket. Because I think for some people that aren't in this world, they may think, like, oh, it's just I'm going to somebody else. A reading is very different with someone that, I always say is referred to you or someone that you find, someone that you vibe with their content. Like, you reach out, you have the conversation, you do an email exchange, whatever it is. People like you are here to help hold that so that other people can step into what it was they were meant to do.
Yes. And as beautiful as that is, sometimes like it's one of those things where I know I suffered imposter syndrome tremendously when I was doing business coaching, but now it's like a different, it's like, I help people do that. And it's like, no, actually. And this is where like have like even I have had my chart to your point about me like wanting someone else to help with these skills. Like I've read my chart a bunch of times and
Right.
and it tells me all of the amazing potential I have.
Right.
And I'm like, really? Am I interpreting this right? Especially in the beginning. Am I
Right.
interpreting this right?
Well,
Like
because we're taught to question ourselves.
exactly. But even
Yeah.
I booked some time with somebody who had been in the experiment longer
Okay.
than I had.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you give me insights? And even that was validating. It was like, oh, I thought I understood this about myself. And you're saying it too. So
Right.
I guess it must be true.
Right. It's just like anything. Like all therapists have a therapist. Like all
Mhm.
astrologers go to an astrologer. Like,
Yeah.
you have your people, and it's important to, even if you're in something or do something, have that reaffirmation because life is hard. Let's talk about the imposter syndrome
Yeah.
from a human design perspective. This keeps coming up time and time again. I speak with so many different people and so many different themes. I'm so blessed to do what I do. I love it so much. There's these threads. And there, more recently than that, has been an amazing imposter syndrome thread. And why don't you talk to us? So let me quickly say, for
Mhm.
me, with this work, I never considered myself a creative. My family is what I super creative. My dad's a musician. My brother was a musician, graphic designer, all of those things. And my mom and I were kind of like, oh, we're the spiritual ones, as if that's not fucking creative. Like we're like, oh no, I can't, write a song. And so therefore I'm not creative. So my first step, which stepped me right into imposter syndrome, I was not ready for that. You don't realize, is like, oh, I am a creative. Oh, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. And you have to just keep moving through that imposter syndrome, right? And I don't know that it ever fully goes away. I think you get older, you are in it for longer, you get more confidence, you have more at bats to help people and to serve. But how would you talk about imposter syndrome from like a human design perspective? And I'm
Yes.
sure most people have it.
Yeah. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, I use human design to talk about the solution. More so because I've done this because I knew a projector, and she would always talk about like how easy and flowful her mornings were. She would go to the gym and have a smoothie and check her email at 9, and just, I was like, can you make money? Like, you just flow through your day with ease.
Sounds amazing.
And I'm always, fixing a funnel and doing something and putting something together and doing this video. And I'm like, you don't do any of that. You're saying, like, you just do this thing. And when I looked at her energy, she's a projector. She doesn't have that defined sacral that gives her that energizer bunny, go, 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 go. Right. She has to be very discerning with how she uses her energy. As a matter of fact, the not self of the sacral is, do I know when enough is enough? Mm-hmm. And so she has to constantly be gaining wisdom about that for herself, because projectors are only like 20% of the population.
Interesting.
Yeah. 70% are either manifesting generators or generators. So we do have that energizer bunny.
Wow.
Go, go, go. So they're taking...
That just blew my mind. Wow. Okay. So many thoughts about that. We'll save that for a private conversation, but wow. So 20%.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, who are you? Like, how does this even work? Because that's the opposite of what,
It's the opposite. And so when I looked at her chart, it was like, when generators are doing work that they love, that's when they come alive. That's when the excitement comes through. That's when the satisfaction, like, we love getting through a big project and it had a bunch of parts and we put them all together and we felt like we mastered it. Like, we have the energy to sustain that when it's aligned, right? Because if it's not, then we burn out. Right. When it's aligned, we have the energy to keep going and going and going. And projectors, they don't have that sacral battery that allows them to do the same for long, extended amounts of time. But when they're around generators, they feel like they have it because they're picking up on the energy of other people's sacral. And so then they think they can. So anyway, back to this solution. When I literally saw, I didn't even have to look at any of the gates, really. As soon as I saw that she was a projector and I was a generator, I was like, oh, well, I don't need to be jealous or compare myself to you, because
which is different.
We're just designed differently.
Right. That's so beautiful too. What I'm loving the most about everything that you're saying, everyone I know to some extent is living in a world of comparison. Again, it's by design, no pun intended with the word. It is by design for us to be pitted against the most polarizing time on our planet. And what this can do for someone is to anchor, if that's the right word, anchor them more into themselves.
Absolutely. And human design, like I said, it helps with the solution, but there's not always a lot of times where, my biggest problem is people don't always know their time of birth. So there's not always a situation where you can be like, what's your energy type? And you just do a little quick, oh, we're different. Right. So for those, I would go into kind of the mindset that I was in before, and actually learn something about these pieces of ourselves recently that I think will be really helpful. So going back to the mind, body, spirit, we are spirits, we are souls having a human experience. And so we are constantly brought things in our life that force us to grow, to evolve into what it is that we came here to do. And the mind holds the ego. And the ego, obviously, is that small, limited version of yourself that is always trying to protect you from perceived, imagined threats. And so when you're able to recognize that your ego is telling you things that are stemming from things that you don't even, you're like, did I learn this or do I actually believe this? And it starts to form these beliefs and these thoughts and these patterns then that make us who we are. Human design helps combat the ego. So it helps combat comparison, which the ego compares a lot, but it also just helps you because when you look at your design, when you know yourself deeply, you're like, wait, no, that's what you're saying. Like, I'll give the example. I was just talking with somebody about their son, and they have this gate 10, which the shadow for that is self-obsession. And so it's one of those things where if you know that that's one of your like shadow frequencies, if you're in your awareness that that's one of your shadow frequencies, then when the ego tries to feed you things that that form that self-obsessed, those narcissistic tendencies, those etc., you're like, wait, hold on. What's the gift here? What's the act like? And then you can ask yourself some questions to get you back into alignment, because right now your ego is speaking for you, and that's not you. The real you knows that you're limitless. It knows that you're infinite. It knows that you have the creative power to create whatever it is that you want. There's nothing that can stop you. But the ego is like, will that really work?
Damn monkey brain.
Right?
Damn it, humanoid brain.
Yeah.
That's such a good example. No, that's perfect. And I think what would be helpful, super high level, we don't have to get into it too deep because I want people to be curious and book time with you. Tell me about this. So you talked about gates, you talked about generator, but tell us high level what the structure of human design is, if that's helpful. I think that'd be helpful for people to understand.
So there's structure.
Yeah. So how many different types are there? Yeah, like that. Just yeah.
Okay. Yes. So there are, depending on who you ask, there are 4 or 5 different types, and I say that because technically there are 4 types: generator, manifestor, projector, and reflector. But there is a hybrid energy type of a manifesting generator. But they still mostly operate as generators. So that's why I say, depending on who you ask, it's 4 or 5.
Right. That's like splitting atoms at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
At that point.
Got it.
Yeah. And so how the system works is every single person or every single type, I should say, because we're talking high level, every single type has their kind of purpose. And so some of us in the human design world, we like to use analogies to kind of help you put it together. So in the form of a project, like if we were building a bridge, so the manifestor, that catalyzing energy, they have this idea. They're like, you know what? I am tired of going by boat from here to here.
There's got to be a better way. I can figure this out.
Right? So they have the inspiring idea, the innovative thought. Yeah. And so then they use their strategy, which is to inform others about this amazing idea. Why don't we build something that helps us make this easier for ourselves? Yeah. And then the generators, who have that natural sacral response, do I have the energy to sustain this work? Yes or no? So the manifestor informs everyone technically, but generators specifically in this example. And the generators, especially those who are like, you know what? Yes, I have the energy to fix this solution.
You're not that crazy. I think we could do this. And the judge's like, great, go figure it. Like, my job is done. Next. It's like a baton pass. Okay. I love this example, by the way. Keep going. This is amazing.
Thank you. So then the manifestor's like, awesome. I've got people who support me. Let's start creating this. They start building the plans, drawing out the architecture. Then the generators come and they're like, yes, they get the tools. They start building it. Bridge is almost built, however you want to see it. And then the projector comes in, the project managers, because they have this aura that sees into other people. They can see the gifts and the potential of other people. And so consequently, sometimes they don't focus on themselves because they're so busy seeing the potential of others.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But they come in and they're like the project managers. They're like, you're awesome at this thing. You're awesome at this thing. You're doing this well. And it's just kind of this beautiful synergy of this idea coming into creation. And the projectors are making sure that the generators who are doing the building are using their energy efficiently, because we do have that little energizer bunny, and we could just go and go and go until we burn out. And then you have the reflectors who come in, and they are our mood rings. They're our evaluators. So once everything is done, they're like, it's good.
Yeah.
Or like, I see these structural things that if you don't want people to fall into this river, you might want to fix a few things.
Everyone's like this, and nobody actually thinks to step back for a second. It's so important to reflect. And that analogy is awesome. Thank you so much, because I like to break things down for people so they can digest it, because sometimes this can get so esoteric. So thank you so much for that. And I think what's important is that every single piece, like if you think about building a bridge or building anything, every single piece is just as important. If the idea wasn't there, it wouldn't happen. If the generator wasn't there, it wouldn't turn into action. What was the third one that you said?
Projector, the
projector. Yeah, because then otherwise this is never going to get built, because these people are just like focused on and the whole structure of it is not the understanding of it, how it's going to work. And then once it's all done, there's many things that these three people haven't thought of. And so each part is equally important. And I think that goes back to what you said about comparison. Why are we comparing ourselves to each other? If everybody is playing their role, that's really what life is all about, no?
Yeah, it's exactly what it's about. It's about realizing who you are, especially because I do a little bit of work with the Akashic Records, and I love the way that my mentor brought this into us. We were all, right, fifth dimensionally hanging out, like in the cosmos, all interconnected and whatnot.
So cool.
and then we were like, you know what? This is cool being all interconnected, but I want to experience myself. And so then we chose to incarnate. We chose to come down to earth to experience ourselves, to have this human experience, to be brought with these challenges that force us to grow and evolve and realize who we are even more.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to do. And these tools just help. They help you see that everyone has their place. They help you see that there's no reason for comparison, because we're all, right, in that same thing, right? If I'm constantly comparing myself to a projector, I'm going to be in my generator not self, which is frustration.
Yeah. I love that you said that. And I've said this so many times on the podcast. For everyone listening, this is not a place to chill. None of us chose to come back to be secure and safe and, whatever. Obviously, we have to balance. We have to align. There's all these things. But Earth School is a place where you choose to come back to have your soul grow. And I don't care if your kid's growing and they have pains in their legs. If your plant is growing and it's having a really hard time, there's not enough water, like everything is here to grow. Everything that we see, there's growth. We look at technology and the growth that's happening in 2025. This is a place for growth. And with growth equals transformation, equals uncomfortableness, equals tests, equals all of those things. And what shifted for me, and I don't know that I've ever told you this, I want to say maybe it was 2 years ago. I was literally standing in my living room and I had a thought. I was like, wait a second. Everything I've been chasing, which was all those things I said, comfort and calm and safety and whatever, that's not it. That is not it. And those things are part of this human experience, and they have their place just like everyone has their place. But we're here to crack open and learn the lessons that we chose to come back and learn. And isn't there such a power and a peace in that?
There's so much, and it can be so empowering. Like, we didn't talk about this earlier, but my car didn't start today, and I had to take my daughter to school. And there would have been a time where that would have ruined my whole day, like having to deal with that, learning that my warranty was expired. So now I got
because then it's just a cascade of shit that comes. Because it's never just one thing, is it? No,
no, it's never just one thing. But one of the things that I know and I'm aware about in myself is that I have the 36, the gate of crisis. And so I grow and evolve so much when I'm in emotional crisis, when I'm in a situation where I am being forced, tried, tested, my patience, all of it. And so in knowing
the pressure
that,
cooker, that's what
right?
happened. Yeah, absolutely.
And so in knowing that, I was actually able to make that a teachable moment for my daughter. I was able to let her know, who also has emotional authority, so her emotions are important as well. I said we can't always control what happens to us, but we can control how we react to it. And that changes everything. And so it's one of those things where just the awareness helps you step into those lessons a little bit more willingly, because when we don't, and we don't know it's a lesson or we're trying to avoid it, that's when the more resistance comes. That's when the more of what we don't want.
God, is that not 2020 through the present day? I mean, yeah, if you feel like you're just swimming upstream, there's a different way. And it's all a choice. I love what you said. I mean, because I was just telling you, took the podcast on the road. All I care about with this podcast is how good it sounds. It's my whole thing. My editor is always like, oh my God, okay, he's paranoid because he wants it to be perfect. And my ridiculousness, perfectionism needs to stop, and I need to flow, and I need to let go. It's such a big lesson I'm learning in this life. It might be the biggest lesson. And the podcast that I released last week, it doesn't sound good. And you know what I didn't do that I would have done before? I just moved the fuck on. I was like, all right.
Yes.
And my editor's like, that's it? You didn't want me to wait. I was like, what are we going to do? I can't go back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just move through it. And that's when you know you're in your being, when you can be in those moments and flash to the growth and look back and be like, ooh, the previous version of Diamond, the previous version of Alyson would have done this or that. And you have a little chuckle with yourself. You're like,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's growth. And that's beautiful.
It is. It is.
Well, congratulations for not freaking out.
Thank you. On the back. And it just allows for the gratitude to come in even more. And we know gratitude is how we create more of what we want, because my partner, I don't think we talked about this at all, but shortly, my partner was diagnosed with lymphoma a few weeks ago. And so he's been going through treatments and all of these things. And so when winter break hit, obviously, like, I wanted to make sure we don't live together. So I wanted to make sure that, like, she was taken care of, that he wasn't being pushed beyond his limits to, like, you know, play with her and run out his patience and things like that, because his body's healing from the treatments that he's going through. And so that meant that I had to mom a lot more than I normally mom for like 3 weeks. She's been here. She's been under me. And one of the things that I asked her today before this whole car situation came up, I was like, Daddy said he can pick you up from the bus stop. Do you want to spend time with him, or do you want to come back here? Totally being open to whatever the answer was.
Right.
But I was this little glimmer of like, yes. When she was like, I want to stay with Dad. And I was like, okay, like, we have to make sure that he's feeling up to it, that, you know, he has the bandwidth, etc. So we'll see. It's not a yes. We'll see. But we'll play it by ear. And then the whole car thing happened. And it's like, now I couldn't go pick you up because I don't have a car right now. And it's supposed to be his Sunday anyway. So if you stayed there the weekend, I now have 3 days to myself, 2.5, that I didn't have the past 3 weeks.
Right. It's amazing. Well, first of all, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope and pray that he's going to be okay. But okay, thank you for that. The things that happen to us are for us no matter what it is. I say this all the time. People, victim, right? Oh, I can't believe this happened to me. I can't believe this is going on. I don't deserve this. This isn't fair. Then when you can hook into who you are, you have such a different perspective of what occurs for you. And no matter what it is, you know you're going to be okay. Like you got that news, you knew you were going to be okay. You had a day, you know you're going to be okay. You had this car thing, you knew you were going to be okay. There's such a and talk about an imposter syndrome buster. No?
Yes.
That's just coming to me now. Like maybe we are going to kick this shit this year. Who knows? Let's put that out there.
Yes.
Let's be done with this. Let's move on from imposter syndrome. Thank you for sharing that story. And I'm sure everyone that's listening to this will resonate with their own little version of like, oh yeah, I know exactly what she's talking about.
Yeah, right.
Because we're all the same. When it all comes down to it, we're very different, but the core of us are the same. We're here having these experiences to grow. And I'm just so grateful that you have shared your story and yourself with us and your work and your passion. And I can't wait to see where this year takes you. I think, let's talk about that as we wrap up. 2025. I mean, people are going to need this more than ever.
Yes. And I love, you did say we were going to talk about this. So I love that you're bringing this in. I study under Karen Curry Parker, who does quantum human design. There's traditional human design by actual Ra Uru, who had the initial download, but then there's quantum human design, which looks a little bit more at like the energy, the quantum, how it, affects the body, etc. And she went through this whole 2025, like what to prepare for, what to review. And one of the things that was like, yay, like I don't go to forecasts of the year, like especially before human design. Like I was like, whatever, it's the year. And now that I know that on February 10th, one of the gates in my G center that connects and makes for our spiritual people, makes a channel who are into this.
Oh, nice.
If there are non-spiritual people, there's a consistent flow of energy flowing between those two centers, which means that I have more access to those gifts. And I have single definition, which means that my biggest issue is my self-worth, my self-esteem, making sure that I know that my worth isn't attached to a number, even though we've culturally been conditioned, credit scores, grades, etc., that's what your worth is.
Age, income, address.
all of that. And so, especially this past year, having it undefined I have it undefined. It's really been affecting me, especially when building programs and things like that. But on the 10th, until I kept doing calculations, like May of 2026, I'm going to have definition in this part of my chart that has been like so. And so what that means is that there's going to be so much more information that's going to be helpful coming out, because there are some, we hold ourselves back. I'm out there a lot right now, but there are some things that I don't release because I'm like, I don't know if people will think this is worth watching.
Right there with you, girl. You have no idea. Oh my God. Yes.
So I'm excited that at the possibility that that's not going to be in my way for the rest of this year.
Roadblock is moving aside. Bye.
Bye. And so I'm really excited, because even in knowing that for me, there's other people who these transits are going to create these long
big year. It's a big energetic year.
So get curious. Like you said, like I always start my workshops, I'm like, be playfully curious.
Right.
Be confidently vulnerable. There's no judgment. Like just make it okay. Because so many of us, we've been conditioned to be like certain. Yeah. And we have to hold on to these beliefs. We have to be able to prove it. And it's like, no, you are so much more. Like,
break out.
Yes.
Break out.
Yes. So yes, this year is going to be huge for growth, for stepping into what makes you authentically you.
And what role do you think human design, and we'll finish with this because there's so much to look forward to. It's not gonna be easy, guys. This ain't no cakewalk. This ain't for the faint of heart. Okay. We're not sitting here trying to say everything's going to be roses, because again, diamonds are made under a shit ton of pressure, right? The most beautiful gems have been under the most pressure. What do you think can help as far as human design is concerned when people are going through these chaotic and traumatic and sort of tragic times? How do you think that human design and the curiosity and the understanding of one's chart can help in that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ways that it can help is by recognizing what's actually yours and what is actually coming from your external environment. So many of us have a lot of openness in areas where conditioning really has a lot of fun. The heart center that I was referring to is one of them. Like 50% of the population is willing themselves to prove themselves to, you know, to do all of these things. And it's like, that's not you. You're not here to do these things. And so being able to recognize like what's mine and what's theirs, being able to recognize what is pressure coming from like outside noise. And then of course, like getting curious with your beliefs. So if you know, like this is one of those things, like I have an open ajna and the percentage is escaping me right now, but a lot of people have open or undefined ajnas.
Okay.
The not self question that comes out of that is, am I trying to convince everyone that I'm certain? And so
many people live in that.
right?
God.
Just let that sit.
Yeah.
But just having that awareness. And I think that's going to be really, really helpful going forward because there is so much stuff. And then, of course, like we have our own charts. We have our own openness. But as we know from looking at the planets and being into astrology and that being a part of human design, different things get activated globally. So
we're all under the same energy.
Right? So even being able to recognize like, oh, this is happening because this is what's in the air right now. This may not even be you. So I don't need to personally take the hit and you know, take this personally because you're acting in your shadows right now. And just to be able to have that kind of peace, that
understanding, that awareness, that root. How about this word, rootedness? If that's even like being so rooted in who you are that you're just like, no, that ain't mine. Everyone needs that in 2025. Given the way it's off with a bang, like it's going to be wild.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing your gifts with the world. Thank you for coming here and blessing us and me and the listeners with your time and your design of who you are. So thank you. We'll link. Did you have fun? It was fun, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to have you back. We're going to have you back. Will you come back? I do this on purpose on public forums, so I get people to come back that I love.
I know, right? You can
please go back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love talking with you.
I know, me too. Me too. So we're going to link everything below. What is the best way or what kind of like offerings do you have for people? We'll link it all below, but how would you kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So my website is going to be the best place for people to connect with me because I'm going to extend an invitation to our listeners to pull their chart. And they can do that on my site. So start this process of understanding who you are because you're not going to regret it. It's only going to help you move forward. So that's the main, like, that's where you can connect with me. And then, of course, I have a community where people can, once they pull their chart, if they're like, this is actually a path that I want to go on. I don't know a lot about my chart, but I want to know more. And so I have a community that people can join to learn more about themselves.
That's so cool. So you have so many offerings depending on what people want to do. And then of course they can read with you and they can train with you. It depends. Okay, cool. So you have it all.
Yeah.
Well, we'll link it below.
Thank you.
So to everyone that joined us today, thank you so much for listening to our conversation and being curious with us and hopefully figuring out your place and purpose in a deeper way in 2025. Lots of love. Oh my gosh, look, we're getting hearts. That's so cool. And we'll see you soon again in the space between.
Thank you so much for joining us in the space between. We hope this conversation sparked connection for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who will find value. And make sure to tune into our next episode as we continue the journey into the core themes of our lives. We'll see you again in the space between.